divided by a constant of 8. So that's something that makes you think, well, what's going on? You have to calculate that in mind, and if you got like 10 or 15 of these, and each one depends on another one, this is like quite very hard to follow. When it works, it gives you a nice responsive interface, but in most cases there are some glitches, and it makes it complicated. So with React Native, there is the Flexbox implementation of CSS, and like it feels actually like writing CSS in JS. We have Flex, as I said, and container, for example, can describe how the children will be displayed. So it's very easy to follow and very easy to maintain. And in fact, the children don't even know how they are displayed. They only care about their dimensions and color. So it's very, very good alternative, and it works in a cross-platform way. So you don't have to think about whether that's working on Android or not. It's always looking the same. Yeah. So when I also said about learning once, writing everywhere, I said that the applications that we are working, they are interoperable in a sense that you can write logic that's shared, but the views are still kind of specific. And React Native gives you a platform module that has quite a few helpers. Most notably, it has the OS constant, which is a string, either Android or iOS, depending what you are running. And for example, has the select method that it returns you either iOS value or Android value based on the platform. So you can have platform.select, iOS equals, I don't know, A, Android equals B, and you're gonna get A or B depending on where you are. So it's like a very, very nice helper that's inline during the compilation steps, so there is no overheat of checking and returning the proper value. And it also has this cool concept of extensions. So like if you have ever worked with Webpack, you probably know you can define an order of the extensions that you want to load. So you can say that first try to look for React.js, then try to look for JSX, then for JS. And this is the same. You can say that you want to load iOS.js first, and if you are on iOS, and then fall back to JS. So it allows you to override files depending on the platform. It's a cool concept if you want to write something very, very platform specific. So as a last thing before we take a look at the application are like the interactions and the components that we have and we should know before we get up and running. So the most fundamental one is the view one, which is just for building UIs. It's a container that supports a variety of things like layout, pan responders. It's basically a direct mapping to a native view. So it has all these native views capabilities that you probably might need later down the road. But for now, the takeaway is that it's like a div. So we can treat it like a container. And there is also the text, which is like span, I guess, or paragraph that you can use to wrap text. It has also a lot of things like it can be nested, it can be styled, it can break on the line, all the things. So it's also a useful one for displaying text. Text input is for inputs. It has all the things like auto capitalize, auto correction. You can also specify the submit button if you are editing. So you can have like a go button instead of enter, and that's sometimes visible on iOS, for instance. And there is the touchable one, which is for touches. So you have like touchable opacity, touchable native feedback, highlight. Depending on the effect you want to get on the top, you can use either of them in order to record taps from the user. So it's like, and many more. There are like over than 30 components built in, plus a lot of third parties and APIs. So that's only the core that we have just kind of demoed. So this is the first thing that we're gonna see inside the React Native app. This is the developer menu that has a lot of cool extensions. It has an ability to debug JS code, live reload, hot reload, show perf monitor and stuff. So we're gonna just jump into it and hopefully see it. I just have to figure out how to move that. Probably I cannot, so whatever. No, that's not the thing. Okay. So the screen is very small, I have to say. But hopefully I can make it. Alright. Yeah. So I made a blank app just so that we can start together. Essentially, I don't have an idea what we're gonna build. I wanted to build that kind of two red boxes thing that I showed you before with a counter, so we can see all the tools. So we can start with that, and if we will have time, we can play around with different stuff. So maybe I'll just try to turn off the mirroring. That wasn't helpful actually. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is, as with React, you cannot return multiple children, so you have to wrap them with a div or a view so that you return only one thing. So we can just write this just to get the wrapper for all these things. And now what we're gonna do is we have to create these two boxes. We have to create the red box and the blue box. So we will have to create two more views. For now they are just empty, and go here and hit reload, but of course we don't see anything. So let's give them like a color. So we're gonna create style sheet, and we're gonna create a red box, and we can give red box width 100, height 50, and background color we can give it red color. And for a blue box, we can do essentially the same. We can give it with height, and make background color blue. So now the only thing to do is we just have to apply them. So that we write styles red box, and styles blue box. And we hit enter. And maybe we are lucky enough to see a preview or not. We're gonna also make a container here. Give it flex. So it's actually a good moment to check out the developer tools and how they can help us. So if nothing is actually appearing on screen, we can use inspector and just click around to see what's going on. And as we can see, there is actually nothing rendering, so we can try to hit reload, and it's still not working. So we can, for example, enable live reload and see if nothing changes. And it doesn't change, so probably a good idea is to rerun the app again when it doesn't work. So yeah, when you hit run iOS, it's actually going to execute some native code, and it says build succeeded, so that our app is actually going to be rendered. It's good that I have prepared a hacky fallback in case it doesn't work. Okay, so I've skipped quite a few steps. I don't know why, but I knew something's not gonna work. So just kind of let me just go through this what I was planning to build, and maybe I'll just delete that part and maybe okay. So we are where we used to be. Let me get rid of that. All right. So yeah. So we got these two boxes, and I have added that part in the meantime. This is the flex stuff. What it says is that we want elements to be in a row, in a single row. We want to center them in both directions. So we get them exactly in the center of our content, and you have to hit Command R to reload the code. So what we can do here is, for example, we can enable live reload as I did, and now every time I, for example, hit justify or whatever I change, it's going to reload the app automatically without me having to go through it. So let's kind of go back to what we used to have. Initially I wanted to display some state of the component here so that we can see other interesting development things. So what we can do is we can use text, and we can write counter is, and this state counter is our counter. This is the state. Here's the counter I have created previously. So that's the counter. And now, would be cool to kind of make something clickable so that we can change the counter, right? So as we said, we can use touchable opacity, for example, so that we can. Happens sometimes. Yeah, I mean sometimes it tries to reload too often. So we can write touchable opacity on press. We can do increment state function executed. So we just have to wrap it. So touchable opacity is more or less like a link from web. And that's all. But of course we don't have this function. So let me just uncomment it. It's a very simple kind of thing. So yeah, we can tap it, and as you can see, the counter keeps changing. All right. So the problem is that the counter, for example, is 2, and if I delete this thing, its counter is back to 0, right? So instead of live reloading, we can, for example, turn on the hot reloading, and now when I increase the counter to 3 and I delete whatever, it's going to automatically replace the content, keeping the local state of the component. So it's cool for doing these small changes. I don't know what's the setup or approach that you have, but when I'm working on native component, I'm the guy that kind of is refresh every time, just change a pixel and reload. So for me, having the ability not to compile everything for a minute was like a time saver. And we also got quite a few other interesting things here. Perf monitor is a cool thing. It shows us. It's not going to show here probably because of the screen. Oh yeah, there it is. So perf monitor shows you the RAM that's used, the JS core RAM, the number of views, and the frames per second of the UI and the JS. So if you are going to execute to perform any kind of animations and you will be expecting lags, you can check whether the UI or JS is kind of making a problem, and then that's the entry point for you to start debugging. So as you can see, if we will be tapping, there's probably nothing is going to change here. But if I made like a, I don't know, for a loop for like 5 millions, maybe that would, like, I don't know, change it. So yeah, so there is also a cool thing which is like a inspector. You can click whatever you want, and as you can see a preview of the computed properties. So we used flex, so we don't know what's going on. But if we want to see what's the what are the coordinates and etc., this is a good thing. And as you can see, we used text, right? But if you check deeper, there is the RCT text. So the RCT text is the native component that's backing that's the native component. So if you write text from JS, the RCT text is being rendered by the UI. So that's the last but one thing. And the last very cool thing is the Chrome debugger, but I'm not really sure how I'm gonna do it because yeah, so you can go to console and you got some output here, and what you can do is you can do pretty much everything you can do with debugger. You can put breakpoints and just stop on them. So let's just put the debugger here. Yeah, and we are here. Sometimes after a while it will get the source maps right. So we got a full Chrome debugger support with ability to kind of see network requests, sources, console. So I don't know if your debugging is about console logging things, that's gonna help. So it's pretty much the setup that you already know from web, right? Yeah. So that's the demo part. I'll have to sort out why that was broken because I don't know. But yeah, this is like if you are going to start with React, you're often gonna get these kind of problems. Something is blank, no error messages. Don't be upset. It takes time to learn that special approach of fixing bugs with React. but you can get there, and then you will realize it's actually pretty fun. So let me go back to this. Yeah, so as I said, give it a try if you haven't. I'm not saying React Native is the next cool thing that's gonna, blow out the mobile development. I'm not like Eric Elliott, so I'm not gonna, advocate, to use progressive web apps and stop writing mobile apps. But give it a try. It has cool things to offer, and it can be just yet another tool in your tool belt, just to hack around mobile apps and reuse stuff you get. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please ask.
Yeah, I probably have two questions.
Okay.
I can ask the first one first.
Okay.
So before like React Native, I assume does the bridge compile it down to Objective-C or something like that, or does it always run it inside like a JavaScript engine?
You meant the logic?
Yeah, the logic. You say native views, but
Yeah.
what does the bridge do?
So what does the bridge do is, well, I'll give you some nice resources to see a good.
Sorry, the reason I asked is
Okay.
because the question was really about performance.
Okay.
Does it, like before wrappers, obviously you run it inside of that view and stuff like that, so it has the same issues as anything else with in the web browser with like running, for example, lots of images or stuff that is performance intensive.
Yeah.
Is it better now with something like React Native?
Well, yeah. So thank you. So what Bridge is actually doing is, if you will, I'll show you later some nice diagrams about that. But Bridge, essentially what Bridge is doing is when you run an iOS app, for instance, Bridge is like the core of React. This is actually React Native. So Bridge does, like, maybe not Bridge, but the C part, the Objective-C part, what it does is when you run the app for the first time, it loops over all the native modules that you have, loops over all the native components that you have declared, and builds a dynamic object of the properties that you can call from within the JS. So the fact that I showed you there is the platform.os, it could be just because there is a platform Objective-C code doing that. So then what is being done essentially is that you just define a UI as a set of your components, and then on a Objective-C or Android side, there is the kind of React core thing that manages the re-rendering cycle and all this stuff. So there is of course that JS part of React that's always present with React and React Native, but essentially, if you take a look at the native part of things, there are quite a lot of methods that are responsible for re-rendering, saying whether to re-render, check children. It could be observed that the native API is like JS API because there is like React did mount, React will mount, this kind of stuff. So it's very similar, and performance-wise, the communication is async. So that's the key to make it fast because you cannot block on the call. So essentially, the UI is always fluid because the re-rendering happens like every time you change something, that's true. But if you swipe something, like if you open a menu, the re-rendering doesn't happen on JS side. So the UI, it's kind of declarative, but there are still some imperative things done in behind. So if you hit like a performance bottleneck, you can wrap a native view. You can, for example, wrap a card code scanner and just expose a callback on card scan. So it looks like React component, but it's fully native, and the streaming of the camera is not being transferred through Bridge. Bridge is only just to pass information back and forth. So it's like a very good kind of performance, unless you are calling something every millisecond and just kind of making a lot of traffic.
So it also helps with like memory management. Let's say you have like a list of a couple thousand items with image and some text.
Yeah.
So it's like a good test.
Yeah, there is.
And if you scroll that,
yeah,
would it help with the performance? Would the
So
performance be good?
There is quite a few techniques here implemented by React. You can do list views, for example, in two ways. The first one is to use scroll view, and the second one is to use the list view, which is like a table view. So if you use the second one, you got these optimizations like, I don't know, remove the views that are not rendered from memory. There is like prop on component render ahead of scroll, and you specify amount of points. So if a component is 500 points from the viewport, React is going to render it up front. So that's one of the solutions. There is also an remove clipped subviews in order to improve the memory. With images, for instance, they are also swiped. So there is quite a lot of optimizations going on. Some of them are done on native side, some of them are done on JS side. But in case of the scrolling, it's both. Depends. Like the scrolling itself is on JS side, but the components itself can do whatever they want to optimize themselves.
Cool.
How would you go about debugging the issues earlier on, like if you didn't render?
Normally I just kind of use debugger to breakpoint in the render method, and actually a very handy thing that I forgot about that saved my life quite a few times is if you go to the code, let's actually switch back to the view. So it's empty. The thing is, if you turn on the Chrome debugger, which is I guess here, active session, you can stab on uncode exceptions, whatever that is, and in most cases it saves life. Maybe in this case it doesn't. I don't really know what's going on here, but it's probably an issue with
This
I
would
don't know,
happen.
maybe because it's not.
Yeah, that you missed the export default on this one.
Maybe
I don't know if that affects it.
shouldn't, but yeah. I mean, to be fair, this is like exactly the debugger.js file. It's just that I deleted the render content, so it's kind of hard to tell. But usually this is like a very weird problem. However, normally what I would do is I just use the stubborn uncode exceptions, because this is like what's going to happen in most cases. Sometimes you get these things like random, let's say 0. So sometimes you get these exceptions, like these are called the red boxes. So sometimes you get them, but there are often cases. Okay, I think it's actually working well. It's just a glitch, I guess. I think the problem is that it's actually off screen. Or maybe not. Oh yeah. so something's going on here. Yeah. So sometimes you get these hidden exceptions. So you have to debug on them. These kind of glitches happen a lot. So especially when the simulator is kind of hidden. So debugging is always helping. You can debug stubborn exceptions and just see the scope and see what's up. But I would say that's the approach.
How easy is it really to integrate in an existing app?
So
Just replace part of it.
I'll try to open it from the Xcode. I should have probably cleared up the clients from here, but so now I appreciate the fact that clients use these code names, so you have no idea what these are. So actually, if you open the demo project, there is the iOS and Android folder, and the rest is JS. So if you will be opening with how's that called, the Android Studio, you go to Android folder, we go to iOS folder, and we open the Xcode project. So it's actually very easy to do, because given that there is the app delegate, so that's the main of our app, and this is React. So this is actually React Native on the objective side. As you can see, we just specify where to look for the bundle, so the URL. We tell it load the demo app, so that's the component we register, and initial properties, launch options. These are especially fast. So that's all. So if you have like a UI view controller, I'm kind of bleeding. So if you have like a UI view controller with like routes, you can just render that view instead of another one, and yeah, you could make like every single view to be independent React Native instance if you want, if you don't want to use like JS navigation. So that's it. Like it probably has some implications, but to get it up and running, it's just a few lines of code. All right. So thank you very much for the questions. I'll be around here, so feel free to ask me, and enjoy the meetup.
Yeah, thanks so much to Mike. Just a quick correction of my misunderstanding here. Call Stack actually paid for his travel expenses, not live, but
maybe
a lot of pizza and beer. So
maybe I can now say one word about CallStack. You know.
yeah, sure.
I'm just kidding. I mean, we are a dev shop doing React Native, and that's essentially the idea. So if you are looking for some help or want to get better with React, or your company is looking for some help, you can reach out to us. We do also a lot of open source. And there is going to be a React Native conference this year in August that we are hosting in Wrocław, Poland. So Poland is a very nice country, warmer a bit. So feel free to give it a shot. The address is reactnative.eu. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So now there's it's gonna be a 10-minute break-ish. So eat more pizza and drink more beer, and then we'll hear Alex talk about the server-side React.
Quick question. The VS Code thing, how do you get the ES6 running? It's really confusing.
Once again?
Yes, the VS Code.
Yeah.
Visual Studio Code, I've been trying to, I just installed it yesterday. The ES6 and ES7, do you remember what you did to get that working out of the box? With ESLint and all that shit?
Well, I mean, the ES stuff is by Bubble, so it's kind of.
Yeah, with the linting and all that stuff.
Was there linting actually?
Yeah.
Well.